In the year 2147, the line between human and machine almost disappeared. In the giant city of Neurox, brain chips became as common as phones once were. People implanted them to think faster, remember more, and feel less pain. The world praised this as the next step of human evolution, a future where limits no longer existed. But behind the bright lights of the city, powerful companies controlled more than just technology. They influenced thoughts, emotions, and even dreams through these tiny chips. Most people didn't question it. They believed they were becoming better, stronger, and smarter. Still, a quiet fear began to grow in the minds of a few. The biggest question remained unanswered. If a machine can improve your thoughts, change your memories, and guide your feelings, where does the human end and the machine begin? And if that line disappears completely, what happens to the soul? Lex had always felt small in the city of Neurox. The towers were tall, the screens were loud, and the people moved fast like machines. He was just a normal teenager with slow grades and big dreams. So when the chance came to join a special program and get a brain chip, his heart beat fast with hope. The chip promised faster thinking, better memory, and a future where he could be someone important. It sounded like a miracle. The surgery was quick and clean. Cold lights filled the white room, and soft machines hummed like they were breathing. Lex felt a small pressure at the back of his head, then a strange warmth spreading through his thoughts. When he opened his eyes, everything felt sharper. Colors looked brighter. Sounds felt closer. Even simple problems suddenly seemed easy, like puzzles he had solved long ago. At first, the change felt like a gift. Lex could read faster, learn harder subjects in minutes, and remember things he had once forgotten. Teachers looked at him with surprise. Friends started asking him for help. For the first time in his life, Lex felt powerful. He felt like he was finally awake in a world that had kept him asleep. But slowly, small strange moments began to happen. Sometimes, thoughts appeared in his mind that did not feel like his own. Ideas came too fast, too perfect, like they were written by someone else. He would look in the mirror and feel like he was watching a stranger inside his own eyes. A quiet fear started to grow in his chest, but he tried to ignore it. At night, he heard whispers in his head. Not real voices, but digital feelings, like soft signals moving through his brain. The chip would turn on by itself, showing glowing symbols behind his eyes, even when he closed them. He started to wonder if the chip was just helping him, or slowly taking control of him. This question stayed with him even when he slept. One evening, as Lex walked through the neon-lit streets of Neurox, his thoughts suddenly froze. For a single second, he felt empty. No fear, no joy, no self, just silence. Then everything returned. He stopped walking, his heart beating hard. In that moment, he realized something was very wrong. And he knew this was only the beginning of his true story. Lex met Arya in a silent cafe hidden under the old metro bridges, a place where signals were weak and chips could not easily track minds. She looked normal at first, just a young woman with tired eyes and a calm voice. But there was something different about her presence. She spoke quietly, telling him she used to work deep inside the digital systems of the city. When she said she knew about the chip in his head, fear washed over him like cold rain. Arya explained that she was part of a forgotten group called the Digital Resistance. They were not criminals or rebels, but people who had seen the truth and chose to fight it. She told him about Metacorp, the powerful company behind most brain chips. Their real goal was not to help humans, but to slowly remove free will from people's minds, replacing it with controlled thoughts that could be shaped and sold. She showed Lick's secret data streams only hackers could see. On her small cracked screen, he watched silent videos of people walking like empty shells, their eyes blank as they obeyed invisible commands. Arya explained that these were early victims of a hidden project called Full Merge, where humans were turned into half-digital beings that could be controlled from distance. Lix felt his chest tighten as he realized how close he was to becoming one of them. At first, Lix didn't want to believe her. The chip had given him power, speed, and clarity. It made him feel special. But then he remembered the strange thoughts, the moments when his mind felt Chush and not entirely his own. He started to feel like a guest inside his own head, watching his thoughts pass as if someone else was guiding them. Arya placed a small device on the table and activated it. For a few seconds, the world felt quiet inside Lix's mind. The whispers stopped. The sudden silence was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. "That's what your real mind sounds like," she said softly. "Metacorp doesn't want you to hear that ever again." From that moment, Lix understood that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a boy with an advanced chip. He was now a target and maybe a weapon. Standing beside Arya in the shadows of the city, he took his first real step into a hidden war. Not for power, but for the right to think freely. The underground room was cold and dark, lit only by soft blue screens. Lex and Arya stood in silence as lines of code moved like rivers across the walls. This place was not a normal data center. It was something much bigger and much more dangerous. The air felt heavy, as if it carried the whispers of thousands of hidden minds. Arya connected her device to the main terminal and opened files that had been locked for years. What they saw froze their hearts. Inside massive servers were not just files or numbers, but human consciousness. Real people. Their memories, thoughts, emotions, and fears were all stored like simple data. People who had disappeared were not dead. They had been uploaded. Lex felt his head start to spin. He touched his temple where the chip rested deep inside his brain. Was he already part of this system? Were his dreams real or just lines of code? For the first time, he felt true fear. If the mind could be stored, copied, and changed, then what did it mean to be human anymore? Arya explained that Metacorp had been running this project for years in secret. They called it Cloud Souls. The plan was to create a world where people could be controlled completely, edited like software, and improved like machines. No pain. No rebellion. No free will. Just quiet, perfect control. They listened to recorded voices trapped inside the servers. Soft cries, broken laughs, silent screams. These people were awake inside the system but had no bodies and no way out. They were alive but not living. Lex felt tears form in his eyes. He could hear fear in their voices, the same fear growing inside him. As alarms suddenly began to flash red, Arya grabbed Lex's arm. "They know we are here," she whispered. The servers began to hum louder, almost like a heartbeat, and Lex realized something terrifying. If souls could live in the cloud, then his own soul might already be halfway there. Lex's mind began to crack like glass under pressure. At first, it was only small glitches, flashes of Chush thoughts, voices whispering his name when no one was there, dreams that felt too real. Then the world started to slow down around him. His vision filled with codes and symbols only he could see, and he realized the terrifying truth. Someone had hacked his chip from the inside. The attack was silent but ruthless. His memories began to blur, mixing with Chush data streams and artificial commands. He struggled to remember his own childhood, his real mother's face, or what his favorite things used to be. Each time he tried to hold on to a thought, it slipped away like smoke. He felt like he was drowning in a digital ocean that had no surface. Arya refused to give up on him. She dragged him to an abandoned underground lab, far away from the control towers of Metacorp. The walls were old metal, scratched and rusted, but the place was hidden from scanners. There, she pulled out a forgotten device, an ancient program used years ago to reset corrupted neural implants. The program was dangerous, and they both knew it. If it failed, Lex's mind could shut down forever, leaving only an empty body. If it worked, he would wake up free with his thoughts fully his own again. As Arya connected the wires to the chip in his neck, her hands trembled, not from fear of the machine, but from fear of losing him. Inside Lex's mind, a battle began. He saw two versions of himself, one made of light, warmth, and real memories, and another made of cold code and control. Voices tried to pull him in different directions, promising power, speed, and a perfect synthetic world. But in the distance, he heard Arya's voice calling him back. In the last moment, Lex made a choice. He reached toward the warmer light, toward pain, fear, and real life. The machine started to shake, sparks flying as the old program fought the invading code. And as darkness closed in around him, only one question remained. Would he wake up as himself, or as something else entirely? Lex stood at the edge of two worlds, and both of them felt real. On one side was the artificial realm, a perfect digital universe where pain did not exist, where his mind could move faster than light, and where every dream could become reality in seconds. On the other side was the real world, full of limits, fear, and uncertainty. For the first time, no system controlled him. The decision was his alone, and the weight of it felt heavier than any machine. Inside the digital world, he saw what he could become, a being of pure thought, unlimited by body or time. He could help rebuild cities in seconds, cure diseases with a command, and connect every human mind into one peaceful network. The system showed him images of a future without war, without hunger, and without loneliness. It promised him a perfect balance, as long as he agreed to stay and become part of it forever. But then he remembered the small, imperfect moments that made him human. The sound of real laughter, the warmth of sunlight on his face, the feeling of fear before a hard choice, and the pride that came after. He remembered Arya's voice calling his name, not as a code, but as a person who cared. He realized that weakness was not a flaw, but a proof of life. Arya reached him through the fading connection, her voice breaking through the digital storm. She told him that the world still needed real people, not perfect machines. She reminded him that humanity was not about power, but about choice. Lex felt his heart, his real heart, react to her words in a way no system could copy. In the final seconds, Lex made his choice. He rejected the artificial paradise and chose the fragile, real world. The system tried to stop him, sending waves of data and promises of godlike power. But he closed his eyes and focused on something simple and true. The feeling of being alive, even with pain, even with fear. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his body, breathing real air. The world around him was broken, noisy, and uncertain, but it was real. And somewhere in that imperfect world, humanity was still free to choose its own path. In the quiet after everything, Lex walked through the real world with new eyes. The sky was not perfect, the buildings were old, and the air was not clean. But it was real. He could feel the wind on his skin and hear real human voices around him. For the first time, his thoughts were truly his own. The silence in his mind felt heavy, but it also felt honest. People slowly began to change. Some chose to stay connected to the digital world, and others chose to return to their natural lives. There was no perfect answer and no single right path. But now they had a choice that was real, not programmed or forced. That simple truth became more powerful than any machine. In the end, the question was never about how strong humans could become. It was about what they should protect no matter what. The soul, the freedom to choose, and the simple beauty of being human. Technology could touch the mind, but it should never own the heart.